So moving on to laughter now.
Yeah.
Let's see how we met and comedy.
Hello.
And you're a stand-up comedian as well. Enjoying that.
Having a go at that.
Yeah.
Having a go.
So what made you want to have a go at stand-up comedy in the first place and do, of course?
So I think the pandemic was probably the caveat? I'm never good with the words.
Catalyst.
That's the one. Catalyst. There we go. See, that was the catalyst. But there's always been a little bit of something there. We talked about the lack of choices that I had when I was younger. If I was able to choose what I wanted, it would have probably been performing arts. It would have been something creative. It wouldn't have been like a serious, sort of career or anything. It would, not that acting and comedy aren't serious
A desk job.
Serves people. But it's not what I would have chosen. I would have definitely chosen something creative. And it's always been in me, and people have always said, like, throughout my career, oh, you'd be really funny on a stage. And like, I kind of like understood what they meant, but also, hell no, there's no way I'm going on a stage. There's no way I'm holding a microphone. I've got nothing to say that's of value. I'm not that funny. I can't write, like all of those, like, no's. And then the pandemic, like, sent me a bit wild. I got made redundant. I was really bored. I was working. I was working at a rehab on bank for a local organisation. So in between letting go to school, because he had to, because we were both working, and then in the evenings I had nothing to do, and I kept seeing this course pop up from our mate Jane Postlethwaite, and I asked a friend of mine who is an actor and said, do you recognise that person? Because I don't know who they are. Are they legit, or is this one of them Facebook scams? Jane will love this story. So my friend wasn't sure, so she asked one of her friends again, who's also a well-known actor, and they said, yeah, I've heard of her. She's legit. It's not a scam. So I was like, right, okay. And that was it then. And it's the first time I've spent money on something creative for myself. And that was it then. When I met Jane and I did that first session, I absolutely loved it. And I'd forgotten what it was like to have that much fun. I think the first activity we did that stayed with me was, do you remember doing it? You would have done it, where we had people on the other screen and you had to talk about something in the background that you really loved.
Yeah.
And the minute you got to switch it and talk about what you didn't love, I was just in my element. It was just so much fun. And that was it then. I was hooked. And I think since then, Jane has been very generous towards me, because I haven't always had the resources for all of her courses. And that all rhymed. Ta-da! We'll add that into a jingle later. So she's been very generous for me and offered me lots of opportunities to do, I think, every single course that she's got on offer. And at the time, I didn't realise where it was going to take me. I just knew that I really enjoyed it, and it made me feel a little bit alive for myself. Not that life is dead, because I have a very nice life. I'm very lucky in life. But I felt like there was just this little something, this little nagging thing, that something has always called me, and I've never been able to kind of play with it. And, Jane gave me that opportunity. And then when I started meeting people, and then I think when we had our first few improv sessions where we met, when you're like, these are my people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very blessed. I've got some good friends, but sometimes they're not quite your people.
Yeah.
And then
it's different friends for different things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tribe that we've gathered, because we're all a bit bunkers.
Yeah, I think, or trauma, too.
Yeah, there's definitely a strong link between trauma and comedy.
Definitely is.
But yeah, I think finding that tribe and just being able to play and be an absolute knob, really, and be silly. It's like you're getting your childhood back that perhaps you didn't get.
Yeah.
That when you were younger.
It's just so much fun, and connecting with you and some of our friends that we've met through comedy, and we've stayed friends as well. I think we stayed friends because we have a really deep-rooted connection with each other, and that is really, really important. But I think the first time The first gig I did was about a year ago. I think
Is it the Serenity gig? Oh no, you did
No.
the open mic in the.
I did a couple of open mics because I don't think Jane would have let me anywhere near that microphone without some practice. Can't remember how many I've done before. So hilarious because I think that was in March.
Yeah, you were kind of the term behind us, weren't you? You did the stand-up course.
Yeah,
Later than us, yeah.
a little bit behind, which is kind of how I roll anyway. I'm just a little bit behind trying to figure it all out. But like people always say this, and I know that I get asked, and sometimes I wonder if people believe me when I say I'm not sick before I go on a stage. I don't really feel that, and I don't know if that's years of therapy, and I'm just like I'm dead inside.
Yeah, well, I always say that you are my emotional support animal at gigs because I've got less nerves as I've gone on, but when I've just done hot water, and there was a lot of other things going on at the same time.
Hot water,
yeah,
and a surprise.
Yeah, no, with with my mum and everything else, my therapist and everything that was going on. But you have such a calm and steady presence, and it is amazing to see how unfazed you are when you're performing yourself as well.
Yeah, it's the aftermath for me. So I'm all right. Give me the mic. It feels like it's going to sound like the cheesiest cheesy thing you can say, but it kind of feels like home, like I'm meant to be there, and almost like it doesn't massively matter what comes out of my mouth. I think that's been the last year of kind of working a little bit around the circuit, gigs when I've really tanked and gone, oh, and, sobbed for days and felt really bad. It's the aftermath for me. It's the self-deprecation comes the minute I get off the stage and then analysing everything that was shit, because that's what we're conditioned for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our brains are very much conditioned to look at all the shit stuff. Oh, you did that wrong. You did that wrong. But yeah. And then when you get some wanker interrupt, do you remember that gig we did? And that those two drunk people kept gagging in on my punchlines.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. You know when you're like, I don't know what's stopping me from like screaming in their face right now. But I remained like really composed, and I tried to make the best of it. But really what I wanted to do was wrap the mic around their heads. But like I knew like there was a third party involvement, but when there's no third party involvement and it's all on me, I then get really, really quite down about it. And that's something that I've really got to work on for myself, because that's when it stops being fun.
Yeah, and I think that's the danger, isn't it? Because for me, obviously, I wanted to be a comedian from when I was like 8 and used to watch Victoria Wood, but only started doing it just before the pandemic. I think I did Jane's last in-person workshop. And yeah, when you start to put too much sort of stock in it, because you're like, this is my childhood dream and I want to be brilliant at it. And then you're like, hang on, it's comedy. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be having a laugh. And I think we both try and deploy the Millican principle, don't we, where we're allowed to sulk till 11 o'clock this morning about a bad gig. And then that's it.
Yeah.
Put it away.
Sometimes I go a little bit past that. My first gig close to where I live, I mean, we've talked about it a few times. I tanked so bad. And like my friends and family were there as well. And they were like, no, you didn't tank. And I'm like, well, why didn't you fucking laugh then? The room was just silent. You could have had a pin drop. I was dying on the inside. And like someone was trying to, when someone tries to put a shit sandwich together for you and you're like, no, this isn't going to help me actually. Yeah. Like I'm actually too clever for this shit sandwich. They were like, but you had the room's attention. No one was bored. You're like, no. I think they were all just traumatized from the previous act, who was really energetic, like super high energy, almost to the point where I could always feel the anxiety. I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? I put too much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
I felt somehow I'd made it really important that this one went really well. And actually, yes, of course, it's always nice when gigs go well, but I really needed to experience proper tanking, because that was the first time it had happened. Whereas I've got by on my cheeky little set, and when it doesn't go well, you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to go through it. I mean, yeah. I think it's the only, the thing that I love about comedy, which is also one of the downsides, is you can only learn by doing it. And like, if you add up what the stage time we've probably had collectively, it's probably no more than 3 hours or something ridiculous with our 5 and 10 minute sets. Well, you look at the people who are on TV or whatever, 11 years into their career, thinking of Stephen Bailey, he's only just hosted the Apollo. And it's taken him 11 years of doing all the clubs, probably tanking. Like, obviously, he does a lot of gay comedy. I can imagine him going down not so well in some of the pubs that we might do a set in. So, and everyone's been through that. So you've just got to remember that when you're sort of being self-critical.
Yeah, it's very difficult. But I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. But I think I'm not going to be there for a while. And I think some of that is about not having the time.
Yeah.
That I would love to dedicate to comedy. I haven't got the time, but kind of readdressing all of those boundaries again for myself and saying, well, do you know what? It's okay to not have enough time for that, because actually I need to prioritize family or health or work, because those are the things that keep all my structure around me, and comedy is just a lovely bonus. I do try and enjoy lots of comedy as well. So I'll try and get to as many gigs as I can, just to go and watch. There's a few really good ones that are near my house. So there's one in particular, they have pretty decent acts on. So I quite enjoy going to that because it's just down the road.
Yeah, it's handy.
And I'm not plugging for free.
No.
Unless they're going to pay me. Yeah.
Is that Laugh Hard?
It would be. Yeah. But we're not giving up freebies. No.
Yeah. So I'm going to say, what makes you laugh? Who are your favourite comedians or style that you enjoy?
I do love Sarah Millican.
Yeah.
I think she's probably one of my favourite. Probably when I was younger, Victoria Wood would definitely have been somebody for me. I just love the way she is. I love her comedy. I think Sarah Millican is one of my faves, and I think it's because it's very observational, very matter-of-fact, day by day. And I don't know if a lot of women of our age will fall into like the matter-of-fact, this is what's happening around me, and then we're kind of retelling it. I quite like that because women are so busy. Like in the 1940s, women didn't do all of this shit. They just stayed at home. They were forced to stay at home and wipe the asses of small children and serve their husbands. They didn't have to have jobs. Even if they wanted them, they weren't allowed them. So women didn't have all of these extra things. Now we're expected to be everything all of the time. And there's a lot of comedy in that, trying to juggle family, life, focus on your health, look after your mental health, make sure you do something and be mindful.
Yeah.
And I'm the least mindful person because there's just not enough room left in there.
No.
So I really like observational comedy. I think probably Kathy Burke is one of my absolute favourites. And I think it's because I wouldn't say she's political. She's very caring. She really gives a shit about human beings.
Yeah.
And I love how she tells that. And I love the way she swears so much with it. I mean, years ago, people are, people who swear a lot are not very clever. And that's a lie. Ladylike, is it? It's not very ladylike, is it? Well, none of us are very ladylike, are we? And why should we be?
No.
And what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Could spend a whole nother hour on what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
But I think Kathy Burke is probably my favourite. I love her, the way she talks about human beings as human beings, and she kind of challenges, the sort of the status quo of how we see society and how we see poverty and people who are like on the floor. Like, she elevates them, she makes them sound like, well, she doesn't make them sound, they are important human beings. And I think if you sat me in a room with her, I could probably chat to her for hours about just what it is to be a human being and to be kind, and to kind of challenge when people are being absolute knobheads.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. She speaks out, doesn't she, where a lot of people are afraid to do so, and gets a lot of flack for it.
She does.
I mean, obviously, I follow her on Twitter, and she gets some serious abuse, but I really don't think she gives a shit. Like, genuinely, there's some people who say that but they do deep down. But I think genuinely she doesn't.
Genuinely, I don't think she gives a flying fuck what other people think. And I don't think that that's not a bad thing. I mean, there's some element for me, I'm not quite there in terms of not caring what other people think. But she doesn't have to.
No.
Because she's in a position of power. She's got a voice. And I kind of think if I could emulate a comedian like Kathy Burke, where you can have a voice and you can do something good with that, like that's kind of where I would like to be at some point.